And then the way that we're going to do this is there'll be a pretty quick presentation, and then we'll have time for Q&A for any remaining questions you might have about this project. And it looks like you've all done a good job muting yourselves. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and put those in the chat, but we'll mostly wait for the end to address everyone's questions. So my name is Bethany. I work at Trinity County RCD, and I'm one of the project coordinators for this project. I work in our Forest Health Department. And then also with us tonight, we have Chris Cole, who's the program manager for my department, so also helping to run this project. And then Sarah Jarrett and Alex Carter from the McConnell Foundation, who are also involved in this project. So when we do question and answer, we're all going to be able to take your questions. So for some quick background information, this Trinity Hazard Mitigation Project is funded by FEMA through the California Office of Emergency Services. So this is money coming down for wildfire mitigation to prevent wildfire disasters. It's coming through the McConnell Foundation. So they received this large grant, and they're also currently managing similar grants in Shasta County. And then it's coming through us, Trinity County Resource Conservation District, as a local contractor. So we're helping to steer the implementation because we're embedded in the community here. We have the ability to do outreach here and have a better understanding of the community's needs. So that's kind of the roles of all of the people involved in this. Okay, for some quick background information on this project, I want to briefly touch on wildfire history in Northern California. I know this is something that we're all pretty familiar with, so I'll keep it short, but it is important context. So this map shows pre-1990 activity. This is the time post-colonization when the Forest Service was a big fire suppression engine putting out fires, that famous 10 a.m. policy, by 10 a.m. the day after they started. So we can see lots of small fire starts in Trinity County and in the surrounding counties, but mostly small fires, nothing like the mega fires that we're seeing today because they're suppressed really actively. We see that pattern mostly continuing through the 90s. The agency getting really good at suppression with just a few bigger fires starting to escape. And then in the early 2000s, in the first decade of the 2000s, the first kind of modern mega fires, specifically in Trinity County, the 2008 fires. And these are coming out of kind of the fuel changes that have happened through decades and decades of fire suppression. Then we see this trend continuing, the car fires really striking in this decade. And finally, in 2020 and 2021, these just awful fire years with, things like the Million Acre August Complex, really unprecedented fire events happening in this area. And when you look at the last, since the year 2000, since the turn of the century, the amount of Trinity County that has burned is pretty astounding, a major deviation from those older patterns. So when we want to prevent this, right, we think about why this is happening. And one of the big patterns that we've seen is this change in forest composition. This is one of many pieces, along with currently like the drought that we're in, other climatic changes, but changes in forest structure are a big driver behind these huge catastrophic wildfires. So what this figure shows is a study that compares conditions in 1929 with conditions in 2008 on all of these study plots in the Stanislaus National Forest, which experienced very similar changes to Trinity County. And what you see is in 1929, there's a very variable structure. Some areas may be dense and have smaller trees, but in many areas, there's more spaced out large trees with less connection to the understory. And then this really dramatic change to 2008, where there is a mostly homogeneous stand, a lot of trees of about the same age, middle-aged trees, growing really close together, and they're connected to the ground fuels, they're connected to each other. And this promotes much, much more severe fire behaviors than we saw previously. So what can we do about this? When we think about these fuels, that's something that we can address. So this graphic shows why that kind of forest structure can be really hazardous. Historically, what we'd have when we had a more regular fire regime and a more spread out heterogeneous fuel structure is wildfires would often creep along the ground, mostly burn brush and grass, burn occasional trees, but if they got into the canopy, they wouldn't travel through the canopy, they'd just burn kind of one area of trees. Now in these really dense homogeneous forests, we see surface fires spreading quickly, climbing what we call ladder fuels into the canopy, and then once they're in the canopy, running through the canopy and creating these really, really destructive high intensity canopy fires. So when we think about fires like the August complex, where you can go out into that burn scar and just all of the trees are dead, that's a super intense, super devastating canopy fire. So one of the strategies, one of the tools that we have in our toolbox to combat this, especially around our communities, is thinking about hazardous fuels reduction. And that is the primary goal of this project. So the pieces of hazardous fuels reduction, this is removal of understory vegetation, that's those ladder fuels that carried fire from the ground into the canopy. It's spacing out trees, so favoring mature, healthy trees, and removing smaller trees that are more shaded out, and also favoring hardwoods and trees that are more resilient to a wildfire. This project will focus mostly on removing trees up to 10 inches in diameter, but we've got some flexibility around that. This project specifically is not a defensible space focused project. That is also one of the big pieces of wildfire risk prevention in neighborhoods, is thinking about fire safe landscaping and specifically protecting the area around your home. But this project is more focused on the wildland vegetation type, so parts of your property that may be forested as opposed to a heavily landscaped area. And then in terms of debris removal, we're planning to chip, masticate, or pile, or sometimes remove woody debris. And that's going to be dependent on the site conditions, and what is feasible and cost effective to do and works for the landowner. So some examples of what this looks like in practice. These are all from other projects that the RCD has done. This is an example of an area that was brushy, where our crews were able to clear out brush and chip it and expose these beautiful little oak trees. So in spacing this area out, we're both reducing fire danger and giving these oaks the potential to grow and really thrive and mature. These mature oaks are great for fire. A fire will just burn through on the ground and they'll be really happy in those conditions. This is another example that's similar, a brushy area where the brush was taken out along the road, leaving just these spaced out stands of oaks. And then this is an example in more of a wooded environment, where we see that in the before photo, there's just a lot of small trees that some of them are dying. A lot of them are not doing well because they're all shaded out. And these are trees that would burn quickly in a fire, but by removing them, we've made it more likely that a fire would stay on the forest floor. And this is another example in a coniferous environment. I think this is up maybe in Long Canyon, where we've taken out some of the smaller trees and spaced out the existing conifers to create just a less hazardous fuels situation. So hopefully all of you are here tonight because you know this project area and it might affect you or someone that you want to talk to about it. But I'm going to go over the maps quickly. For Weaverville, this is our general footprint. So it's the Tie Lane area off of Highway 3 going down into the upper part of Little Browns Creek, then some Sierra Pacific land to the east of town, and then the Timber Ridge neighborhood and part of Democrat Gulch. And then we have some closer in kind of views of those two areas. So this shows in yellow all of the small private parcels in the Timber Ridge area, and then on the Democrat Gulch Road area. And then this shows the small private parcels along near Tie Lane and Snowy Ridge Road, and then in upper Little Browns Creek. And all of these maps are available on our website. I'll be sharing the link when I'm done speaking. So if you want to go spend more time with them, you're welcome to do that. And then if you have a specific question about your parcel, we can talk about that as well. And then the other major project area is up in the North Lake, so around Covington Mill. This more zoomed out map shows the Sierra Pacific land that we'll be treating along the highway and around the communities, as well as the Long Canyon area, Lake Forest Estate, and Covington Mill proper, and Stroke Creek. And then this zoom in focuses more on the private parcels. So again, that's Long Canyon, Covington Mill, Lake Forest Estate, Stroke Creek. And then that connects to the north into the Trinity Center area. And here we will be treating up in the Trinity Knolls and Trinity Meadows area. And then several of these outlying neighborhoods, bigger parcel areas. So the focus being to treat areas that protect the community itself, where people have more of that interface with the wildland areas. And here's the zoom in on Trinity Center itself with those private parcels highlighted. The timeline for this project is a little bit, well, it's actually very short for a project of this scale. This is a project aiming to treat several thousand acres, which is a really big undertaking, but because of the funding source, we have to jump through some hoops associated with working with FEMA. So the first phase of this project, which is currently underway, began in November and will continue through this summer. And during that time, we're doing outreach and we're doing a lot of the environmental compliance work. So due to the nature of this project, that's a little bit time consuming. And that is why we're seeking those right of entry agreements from landowners at this point, because we need to access land to do archaeological surveys, which are an important part to getting the project through to the implementation stage. And then we'll also be doing some site planning during the stage. And the site plan is a really important aspect of this project, something I want to make sure everyone is aware of. So before we do any work on anyone's property, we'll be completing a site plan for their property. That'll be me or my colleagues at the RCD actually going out, looking at your property. For any landowners that are willing to be present, we'd be meeting with you. We can also do it for landowners that live remotely. We can do it just with a phone call or email correspondence and then going to your property ourselves. But it's an important check on the project that everyone will have the opportunity to sign off on that site plan prior to any implementation happening on your land. So if you're not sure if the treatments are going to work for you, that's totally fair. And we want to make sure that you know that we'll be coming and meeting with you, making that plan, and then from there implementing. So at that point, you can choose to talk to us about it, see if we can make it work for everyone, or to withdraw from the project if it's not going to work for you. And then The second phase of the project will begin after a review period from FEMA, most likely in 2024, and continue for another about 2.5 years. And during that time, we'll be doing some other surveys we need to complete and then doing the implementation itself. And implementation for this project will be completed by contractors. Again, because it's funded by FEMA, we need to go through a federal procurement process. So it won't be done by our in-house crews. We don't have the capacity for the project of this size, and we'll be putting it up to bid. Actually, the McConnell Foundation will be putting it up to bid for a professional licensed timber operator contractor entity. So the big thing that we're looking for at this phase is those right of entry agreements. So these went out in a mailer to everyone who is in the project footprint. It is definitely possible that some people didn't receive them, though. We had some bounce. They're also available on our website, which again, I will post that link when I'm done speaking. And those right of entry agreements are really important. So we're trying to collect those by February 15th. Even though we're not going to be implementing for this project until at the soonest next year, we really do need everyone to sign on during this phase, because if we can't include you in our environmental compliance that we're completing this year, then we can't treat your parcel with this funding. So that is a frustrating thing. We like our projects where we can just kind of go out, and if you like what they're doing on your neighbor's property, you can sign on right then and we can help you as well. But for this project in particular, we need that upfront sign in, and then you can withdraw later if it's not going to work for you. But really encourage everyone to sign on and get your neighbors to sign on at this phase, because we won't be able to add people later. And then participation is voluntary, obviously, and it is completely free. I want to make that assurance now. There will be no cost to you. And then we will have that check of the landowners being able to approve a site plan prior to implementation. So we're not just going to come out and start cutting on your land until we talk about that. A new tool that we have live is a participation map. So this is now available online, and this will allow you to see who has already signed on for the project. And I will share it on my screen in just a minute, but I'm going to put up a few links in the chat at this point. So this includes our website, and then the last link in this little block of text is the participation map. So this map has the footprint of the project, and then every parcel that's highlighted green has already signed on to participate. This hasn't been updated for, I'd say, 5 or 6 days. We've got some processing time on our side. So if you have signed on and your parcel is not yet highlighted, don't stress. But this is an important tool to start thinking about how this is a community effort, right? So if you get your parcel cleaned up really nicely, but you have a neighbor that doesn't, that affects you as well. So we'd like to encourage you to use the social connections you have to encourage as many people as possible in your neighborhood to participate. That helps you as well. And that about wraps up the presentation. Again, everything's on our website. Those links I just posted. We are trying to get those right of entry agreements by February 15th. And then I put my contact information in the chat, but you can reach out to me with any questions that aren't answered tonight. And if I can't answer them, I will pass them up to Chris or to our colleagues at the McConnell Foundation. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other, and then we can take all of your questions.